The Chicago White Sox lost in ugly fashion to the Los Angeles Angels on Monday night. Dylan Cease was outstanding. He gave up a no-doubter to Ohtani, but that is going to happen. Luis Robert Jr. did not disappoint, but the rest of the White Sox offense sure did. Just 3 hits for the Sox, and Robert had 2 of them. Sox try to bounce back on Tuesday with Shohei Ohtani on the hill for the Angels.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong, die-hard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Chicago White Sox take on the Angels on Tuesday. Michael Kopech is on the mound. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. All right, state of the Sox. They are 34-46, but still just 6 games out of the AL Central. It was an ugly one on Monday night in LA. Sox dropped to the Angels 2-1. It was a walk-off of sorts for the Angels. White Sox pitching, they've been striking out a lot of batters this season, and Dylan Cease added to that total, but got the vintage Jose Quintana treatment, an outstanding outing, but very little offense to help out. Luis Robert Jr. Did his part, but the White Sox were mystified by a young lefty starter once again. Full details later on in the episode. This was Pedro Grifol after the series win against the Red Sox on Sunday. Every win is critical for us, Grifol said. We know that we're at then 34-45, 6 games out in the AL Central. We know where we've got to get. We know what we're trying to do. Every win is critical. And with that type of mentality, that was a very tough one to lose on Monday, especially with the outing that Dylan Cease had going on. Prior to Monday's series opener against the Angels, the White Sox recalled outfielder Adam Hazley from AAA Charlotte and optioned infielder Jose Popeye Rodriguez to Class AA Birmingham. Boy, Jose Rodriguez, we hardly knew you. One pinch hit opportunity, and that was it during his short stint with the White Sox. This was from Bob Nightingale, USA Today, just a few days ago. A little blurb he had in his weekend edition. General managers are quietly rooting for the Chicago White Sox and St. Louis Cardinals to keep losing simply to enhance the commodities at the August 1st trade deadline. The White Sox are expected to widely shop starters Lucas Giolito, Lance Lynn, and Mike Clevenger, along with veteran relievers Kendall Graveman and Joe Kelly, providing they're out of the race. The Sox, again, are they're falling in that under 500. I mean, 6 games back in the AL Central, but that's the thing that you can't look at, even though it's so tempting to look at it. I am looking at the win-loss. I'm looking at run diff. I'm looking at a lot of offensive numbers. and it's not looking good. So providing they're out of the race, it's sure trending that way at this point. Now, the Angels, on the other hand, they're a few games over 500. I think 6 games over 500. They might be third place in the AL West. Not too many games out of that wild card spot. So they're going to be looking for some pitching. And there was an article in Halo Hangout on Fansided about exactly what the White Sox could be shopping. Arms like Giolito, Kelly, Graveman, Hendricks, and even Dylan Cease. And that would, you'd have to get an absolute haul with the how Cease is controlled by the White Sox, but who knows what this front office is thinking, what they're trying to do. Whether you have any faith that they're able to do whatever they think they're going to do, that's a whole different story. More rumors. This is from MLB Trade Rumors, an article they had just a few days ago. Considering Chicago's 33-45 record, it can't be ignored that Anderson's temporary move to the Keystone could also serve as a showcase for any interested trade partners. As per most public defensive metrics, Anderson has had subpar glove work as a shortstop over the last 2 seasons, and a move to second base might eventually be required as Anderson, who turned 30 years old 2 days ago, gets deeper into his career. A team doubtful of Anderson's shortstop defense could be more keen on using him as a second baseman, or an ability to shuttle between both positions might also boost the former All-Stars trade value, given how clubs prize versatile players. So Tim Anderson was back on Monday, and he went back to shortstop, as Pedro Grifol kind of hinted at over the weekend, even though he did go back-to-back games at second base. He was back in the lineup, but he was hitting in that second spot, and probably should be much lower than that with the way he has been hitting. Paul Sullivan of the Chicago Tribune had a write-up on Sunday, kind of taking stock of the White Sox as the halfway point nears, and had a bunch of different blurbs about a couple different things. But this is what he said about Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson is too good a hitter to continue at his current pace. That's what we keep saying anyhow. Anderson, the 2019 American League batting champion, was hitting .358 on June 22nd, 2022, before going on the injured list with a groin injury. He since has suffered finger, knee, and shoulder injuries and is hitting .244 with 1 home run and 11 RBIs in 93 games. Anderson's last home run was on July 15th, 2022 in Minnesota. Anderson with another rough game on Monday in LA. He was 0 for 4 with a strikeout and had some issues at shortstop as well. Really the bright spot these days is Luis Robert Jr. Is he all-star game bound heading to Seattle? This is what Robert said after Sunday's game against Boston. It will be a good accomplishment, but that's not my primary goal, Robert said through an interpreter of a possible all-star selection. I want to carry this team to the playoffs and hopefully to the World Series, but it would definitely be an accomplishment if I'm selected to the all-star game. And it sounds a lot like the stuff that Jose Abreu used to say, kind of team first, want to get to the playoffs, want to get to a World Series, want to have success with this team, and any individual accolades I get, that's great. That's great. That's, in my opinion, that's really nice that Robert has that mentality. Hopefully that's where he's at mentally. I think, some issues happened earlier this season where, maybe it just kind of hit him like a lightning bolt. Like I've got to figure some things out and take this game and approach it in a different way. But he definitely continued things in LA on Monday. We'll get to that in a little bit. Another just, we talked about some of the veteran reliever arms, but some of the guys like a Middleton, could potentially be moved if the Sox continue to trend the way they're going. And Middleton is such a great reminder that you don't need to overspend on relievers. Sox, I believe, have the most expensive bullpen, and it's improved, but for a while at the beginning of this season, it was the worst bullpen in all of baseball. And you have guys like Middleton that have emerged with a 2.33 ERA in 27 innings after picking up the save in the White Sox 4-1 victory Sunday against the Red Sox. The 29-year-old right-hander has emerged from a non-roster invitee into spring to a valuable setup man and possibly a trade target for rival teams at the deadline. We did not see Middleton on Monday, but I have a really good feeling we'll see him on Tuesday. Dylan Cease, he deserved so much more for his performance. Luis Robert Jr. can only do so much. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the parts fit just right and are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. White Sox take on the Angels on Tuesday. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Sox fell to the Angels 2-1. It was a walk-off for the Angels on a wild pitch by Aaron Bummer. He had a rough ninth inning. Cease, though, was on the mound, and that was some fun stuff. This was the lineup that the Sox threw out at the beginning. Benintendi, T.A., Luis Robert Jr., Jimenez, Vaughn, Berger, Frazier, Andrus, and Zavala. Top of first, Luis Robert Jr., solo shot, 22nd home run of the year, third game in a row with a bomb. It kind of stayed like that for a while for the Sox in more ways than one. Bottom of first, Dylan Cease used a fastball to strike out Mike Trout. Real nice changeup to Ohtani, 73 miles per hour. A little over a 20-mile-an-hour drop-off there from fastball to changeup. Then struck out Ohtani, looking at a 96-mile-per-hour fastball at the top of the zone. Got a ground out to end the inning. 2 strikeouts, 13 pitches for Cease in the first. Top of second, nothing doing for the White Sox. Jason and Gordon talking about trying to close the gap in the AL Central as soon as possible. I think they mentioned somewhere around 12, 13 games before the All-Star break. And then, of course, the deadline looms, and teams really have to make a decision as we sit just about at the halfway mark of the season. The 6 games back, it's not insurmountable, but when they threw up a graphic of some of the biggest gaps closed, to win a division, 6, and then you've got a couple outliers at double digits, but 6 seem to be 6.5. That was kind of the most in history in terms of gaining ground. So that was what the conversation was there in the second. Bottom of second, third strikeout of the game. Cease went upstairs, a few shades out of the zone, then got ground out, easy 1-2-3 inning. Bottom third, Cease, he looked locked in at this point, getting ahead, hitting the corners, and seemed to be very comfortable with Zavala's pitch selection. It sure did look like Sebi Zavala was calling those pitches. I did not get any shots of Dylan Cease using the pitch com. I think he was just trusting what Sebi Zavala was doing. 1 hit, 4 strikeouts, 0 walks, 40 pitches after 3 innings. We'll go bottom 4. This is going to happen. It really is. Shohei Ohtani destroyed a slider to right field. Solo home run, game tied at 1. It was a mammoth shot. It wasn't a horrible pitch by Dylan Cease. Shohei Ohtani got all of it. He knew it. Cease knew it. But Cease bounced back, struck out a pair to end the inning. Top of 5, Sox sitting on 1 hit to enter the inning, waiting for their first walk. And sure enough, Andrew Vaughn led off with a base hit through the left side, and then Jake Berger walked. 2 on, nobody out. Sox did absolutely nothing. Frazier, Andrus, and Zavala all struck out. The lefty, Detmer, was not phased and sat the White Sox down. Ugly effort, but 7, 8, 9 has been rough this season for the Sox. Bottom 5, 75 pitches through 5 for Cease, 7 strikeouts, 3 hits, top of 6, absolutely nothing from the White Sox. Although another Tim Anderson ground out, which was kind of the highlight / low light. Bottom 6, Cease struck out Trout for the 3rd time on a fastball, a 9th strikeout of the night, then got Ohtani on a nasty slider for strikeout number 10. Top of 7, Detmer coming into the game 1-5 with a 4+ ERA, but the Sox, of course, were making him look like a Cy Young candidate. Andrew Vaughn took another walk, but that was it. Bottom 7, Cease was back out there. Angels got the first 2 on. Tim Anderson charged with an error, then reversed to a base hit, and that was it for Dylan Cease. Kelly entered. Strikeout, then a beautiful double play. Andrus flipped to TA, then fired to Vaughn. End of inning. You go top of 8. Los Angeles Angels had their bullpen working. Right-handed pitcher Webb mowed down our lefty bats. Gavin Sheets, pinch hit, ground out. Yaz, pinch hit, strikeout. And Benintendi struck out. So the right-handed Webb completely mows down our lefty bats. Bottom 8, Lopez in. It was an easy inning for Ronaldo Lopez. Top of 9, Luis Robert Jr. got his 2nd hit of the game. 3rd for the Sox, but Eloy hit into an inning-ending double play. So here we go, bottom 9. Lopez still in the game, and he looked rather intimidated by Mike Trout, understandably so. He had Trout, I think, beat on the fastball, sitting around 98 miles per hour. Trout could not catch up to it. And then all of a sudden, Lopez decided to throw Trout a changeup, which he hadn't thrown in the entire sequence. And it was not a competitive changeup at all. Trout walked. Then Bummer came in. And Bummer has had his way with Shohei Ohtani. I believe Ohtani was 0 for 8 with 2 strikeouts against Bummer in his career. And it looked like Bummer was very intimidated with Shohei Ohtani, which is very understandable. But, bouncing things in and ended up walking Ohtani. There was a wild pitch during the Drury at-bat. So runners advanced to 2nd and 3rd. After striking out Drury, Bummer threw another wild one that Yaz could not handle, and Trout scored. Game over. Gut punch. You had a feeling, though. I'm sorry to say, but, when you've seen this team play over and over, and it really goes back almost, I guess, to, last season, but definitely this season, you just have this feeling. And I hate to say it. I hate to say the Sox shouldn't have won that game with how they performed offensively, but Dylan Cease, boy, what a line! 6 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 0 walks, 10 strikeouts. He has his ERA at 4.04. He threw 99 pitches. Again, it felt like a Jose Quintana type of outing. If you of course, remember when Jose Quintana was on the mound years ago, and he would throw some gems. and he just was a tough luck pitcher. He wouldn't get anything offensively. And that happened to Chris Sale too. I mean, Chris Sale would put up great numbers. He'd have double-digit strikeouts, and more times than not, it's just like, well, he got a no decision or he got a loss or something. It just didn't work out. Sox offense wasn't able to do their part. I hope Dylan Cease doesn't go by way of Chris Sale, meaning we are going to, we've had Dylan Cease, and he really, he came on the scene last season, and he hasn't been as good this year, but still, you absolutely want to build around this type of guy in your rotation. He was awesome on Monday night. And you hope he only gets stronger and he starts, kind of getting back to the 2022 form, at least the second half of the season. But what are the White Sox going to be able to do with him, in his prime, in their rotation? That's what I'm concerned about. That's kind of what happened to Chris Sale, and we all know what happened in the fall of 2016. So after Cease was done, it was Kelly, Lopez, and Bummer. Sox offense, 1 run, 3 hits, 2 of them from Luis Robert Jr. Sox were 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position, 12 strikeouts, and they walked twice. Andrew Vaughn had both of those walks. It's probably not the best time for the White Sox to try to wake up their bats, but stranger things have happened, I guess. Kopech and Ohtani on Tuesday. More on that in a moment. All right, Sox back at it, trying to even up the series here. Another late one in LA. I think another 8:38 p.m. local time start, Central Standard Time. Michael Kopech versus Shohei Ohtani, and Ohtani 6-3 this season so far. 3.13 ERA, 117 strikeouts in 89 innings. It will be his 16th start of the season. Michael Kopech is 1-3 with an ERA of 5.27 and 22 strikeouts in 4 appearances against the Angels in his career. Kopech faced the Angels back on May 29th on the South Side. He went 4 1/3, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, a couple of walks, and 10 strikeouts. Again, White Sox pitchers have been getting their strikeouts. Kopech has a record of 3-6 with an ERA of 4.06 and 94 strikeouts in 15 appearances this season. Last time we saw Kopech, he pitched against Texas last week, went 4 innings, gave up 4 hits, 3 earned runs, only threw 86 pitches. And it came out after the game. He wasn't hurt. Nothing structurally wrong with him. He admitted, he just didn't have it, and how critical each of these games are. And Grifol noticed that. And I also read something after that Kopech start that they were looking to just kind of keep an eye on his innings as he's starting to approach, a career high. And again, here we go with a guy like Kopech that, again, came over in the fall of 2016. And I still don't really know what we have with him. I know what we want. I know what he wants. We've had glimpses. We've had back-to-back starts this season. We had moments last season. And now we're like working on, monitoring his innings here in 2023. And it's just odd to me. I get it. He's reaching uncharted territory, but I just wanted him to be, no limits. Let this guy just throw. Let him pitch. Let him figure it out. If he hasn't figured it out already, let him be him. Like, don't put the limitations on him. But it sounds like they're keeping an eye on it. So we'll see what's going to happen. I don't have high hopes for this White Sox offense. After what I saw against Detmer, okay, which I gave you his numbers coming into the game. But that's the White Sox, right? They make these pitchers that haven't done anything into Cy Young candidates. A lefty, nonetheless. Remember when White Sox often would destroy left-handed pitchers, left-handed starters, I should say, ate their lunch. That has not happened. It hasn't happened with that regularity that it did a while ago. Maybe I'm thinking way back to 2020. I know that was a monster year, maybe probably 2021. But you got Ohtani on the hill. I don't know. Maybe all of a sudden they get amped for this, like they did against Kershaw in L.A. We will see. Looking for at least Kopech. Go 6. Kopech, can you go 6? How about that? That would be nice to see. Folks, thank you so very much making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere. You find your podcast. We're on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Hey, don't forget, please subscribe to that YouTube channel. Pass it along to other White Sox fans in your life. And any questions, comments you have, get them into lockedonsox@gmail.com. Our White Sox take on the Angels on Tuesday. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. Hey, everydayers, you know who you are. I do appreciate it. On the next episode, I'll recap Michael Kopech's outing. Hopefully, the White Sox will do the unthinkable and beat Shohei Ohtani. Really appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Borowski. Until next time, go Sox.